Good. Should we get started?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, my name is Stuart DeCue. I'm the Executive Director of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. This is, every year I've done an alumni webinar, and we want to make more of a regular practice of this. So we'll be doing a number of these throughout the year to give folks an informal look behind the research, connections across campus, curriculum, and activities at the Center for Business and the Environment, and most importantly, ways that alumni can engage in that and ways that you all can collaborate, co-create, and contribute to the activity on campus, which is really the key theme for us at the center. So just a little bit about this. So we're going to run through the 5 of us here. So Todd Court, Stuart DeCue, Heather Fitzgerald, Sophie Janaski, and Brad Gentry, different components of the work at the center. Introduce it and the different stages of things that are going on, from things that are more advanced and established to activities that are just getting up and running, and the ways that we hope to engage alumni in that work. Heather is going to be running the Q&A on this. So if you have questions anytime throughout the presentation, please just submit those to the question and answer function, and we'll answer those at the end. We're hoping for about 35 to 40 minutes of kind of conversation on our side to start in shorter bursts, and then 20 minutes for Q&A at the end where we can pull everything together. For those of you who aren't familiar with the center, this is a joint initiative between the School of Management and the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies that was established a little over a decade ago in response to student and alumni interest and interest from external partners. Really, people saying that we need a rallying and focal point on campus for these two disciplines, these two schools to come together, building on the now almost 40-year history of there being a joint degree program between the two schools. So that first decade of growth was incredibly successful in expanding the joint degree between the two schools, which is the largest at Yale, creating a host of research, interdisciplinary research projects between the two and across the university, and really seeding a number of areas of work within this mission, which is to educate and inspire interdisciplinary leaders through pioneering business solutions to systemic environmental problems. And one area now that we've seen a lot of development and growth in particular is curriculum. So as a quick update, we've now taken a leadership role through Todd in a new track at the EMBA program at the School of Management. So for those of you who aren't aware, there is now a sustainability track of the EMBA program at the School of Management, where students come with more experience, 13 years plus, and come every other weekend to Yale and get the kind of full MBA experience with an engagement and specialization pulling from the best of the best at FES and faculty from across Yale who teach on sustainability. And Todd is now in charge of that curriculum and that program. So we're thrilled about that. Brad Gentry, who, the kind of fixture here at Yale in this space, and the anchor for it, or guide rather than anchor. That doesn't sound right. It sounds negative. Is now the head of the specialization with Marion Chertow for Business and the Environment at FES. So FES has really focused and put more effort into creating an advanced curriculum in specializations and tracks. And Brad is leading the one on business and the environment. And Brad is also the member of the search committee for the new dean at the School of Management that was selected from outside of the School of Management faculty. So in terms of selecting the next and considering the next leaders for the schools, developing curriculum, CBEY and the people involved in it are in a very good spot at the moment. But what we want to see beyond the things that are happening on campus is a vision of where we can go beyond where we've been successful thus far. So we've done what we think is a really good job of connecting the two schools and building a relationship between FES and SOM that influences across campus. Sophie can talk about this, but there's a vibrant ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship now at Yale, which we've been involved in. And we're really looking to kind of take our work to a couple of different stages beyond that. And we've kind of put those in form through a series of these aspirations to see beyond boundaries, disciplines, and challenges to move towards sustainable solutions. Brad will talk about this in an emerging area of work he's doing on nature and health in this webinar. CBEYond current business models by catalyzing innovation entrepreneurship. Sophie's going to talk about an example of this in our student engagement across campus in this space. CBEYond traditional financial markets by growing sustainable investment. Todd and his work in the Yale Initiative in Sustainable Finance is going to talk about the research and activity that the center does in this space, as well as engagement with alumni and professionals that have been critical to the launch of a new initiative that we've really been excited about this past year. And I'm going to talk about some of seeing beyond the degree into active learning communities and vibrant alumni networks, highlighting some of the work that we've done and continue to build on in clean energy finance, where we're launching new resources for professionals, as well as new degree programs that will connect beyond the campus here and allow distance learners to access the resources at Yale. So we really want to think about our next 10 years as where we are influencing the broader university and where we are really creating opportunities and pathways for alumni to deeply engage with the work here, for external partners to deeply engage with that, and for us to be able to harness the intellectual capital of Yale to address these critical social and environmental challenges that are out there in the world. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd to talk about one of the areas in the last 2 years where we've seen kind of the most development and growth through the Yale Initiative on Sustainable Finance.
Thanks, Stuart. Skip right past that picture. As Stuart mentioned, there's a number of activities in finance, sustainable finance, that the center touches on. So many of you who've been through these halls know about our work on conservation finance and clean energy finance. About a year ago, CBEY joined up with the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy, YCEL, to form a new initiative called the Yale Initiative on Sustainable Finance. And some of you on this call I know are deeply familiar with this because you were critical in kind of the early stages of forming that YISF, as we call it, from either helping us to form courses or helping in the early research or even sitting on the advisory committee that we have in place. So I want to just a brief thank you to many of you who are on the call. For those of you who are not as familiar, let me give a really brief introduction and structure. YISF is primarily focused on what we call mainstream environmental and social governance data and investment strategies, or ESG. And our mission at the initiative is to identify the hurdles to mainstream capital moving into more sustainable investments, and how do we reduce those hurdles. We structure this in two main areas or two main efforts. One is a research effort, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail, and the other is a knowledge network. And we're supported in this effort through our advisory committee. We have about 15 asset managers, asset owners, think tanks, and a couple of corporations that are helping us think through these challenges, because we in particular want to be market relevant when we identify those hurdles. The knowledge network has been focused around a series of symposia. Last year was the inaugural symposium. We talked about the state of ESG data in November of 2017, or excuse me, September of 2017. And we had an associated journal with around 16 articles on the state of ESG data that came out to a fairly wide acclaim. I think the papers were well accepted and regarded in the field. We're following that up this year with the second symposium. This time it is in November on the state of ESG standards. And so if any of you are interested in the field of mainstream financial standards for environmental social governance aspects, I encourage you to reach out, let me know, or anyone at the table that can connect us. And we'll make sure that you have an invitation to come. It's a very interesting and productive discussion for a day on November 2nd of this year. On the applied research side, we generally focus on 4 key areas, which are at the bottom of the page here. So the first, which I've been mostly leading on behalf of the initiative, has been around materiality and financial reporting. This was kicked off from a grant from the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. And the basic question was that when we look at voluntary sustainability reports that corporations put out versus their financial reports, their 10K statements or 20F statements, there's an enormous gap in the ESG issues that are discussed in each of those. And in the financial reports, more often than not, when environmental or social risks are identified, it tends to be in boilerplate language or general counsel's coverage language. So based on that gap, we want to identify why is it that there's such a difference between what is identified as material in one report versus the other report. Is it really just down to financial materiality, and what does that mean if it is? So we undertook a first level research in the agricultural sector, food, beverage, and agriculture sector, to figure out what are the differences in process of assessing risk and materiality between financial departments and sustainability departments within companies. And we've identified a list of elements in those materiality processes that are different. We're now moving fairly rapidly, hopefully in the next month or two, to produce a handbook with the World Business Council around if you are interested in better aligning materiality processes between your sustainability efforts and your financial reporting, how would you go about doing that? What kind of criteria involved? What kind of stakeholders would you engage with? It's very akin, for those of you who know, it's very interrelated with the new enterprise risk management frameworks that are coming out from COSO, and it's meant to be a complement to those standards. So that's one area that we've been particularly active in over the last year since the initiation of YSIF. The second is around the quality or around the practical application of environmental social governance data and financial performance. So mostly this has been focused on heat mapping correlations to try and figure out which ESG metrics drive causal performance of financial benefit versus which and what codependencies sit within that heat map. We've been at that for almost a year now. We're making some progress, but we've been somewhat hindered by the third category, which is the ESG data itself. And so we've, in the last 6 to 8 months, we've taken on a more active role trying to assess ESG data. We have, for those of you who have met her, Diane Strauss joined us about a year ago as the research director for YSIF, and she's mostly focused on this third area of data. She's not only looking at the quality and the gaps of the data that underlies our analyses and the analyses of other empirical studies, but she's also looking at applications of ESG data. For example, machine learning applications, artificial intelligence applications, big data applications, and how those applications can or can't be implemented around environmental and social governance data. And then the last one, which we'll be picking up in our knowledge network in November, is around ESG standards. And this is a fairly big topic area, but we've been focused on 3 particular aspects. So one is methodological standards for the data itself. The second is what I call materiality-based standards. These are standards that identify a certain set of metrics in environmental and social governance aspects that would be applicable across companies within a sector, so that we could focus in on those and to drive comparability between equities. This is the same approach that SASB and GRI, for example, have been trumpeting. And then the third is around impact metrics and the standards for assessing impact from corporations. So a huge suite of activities and a fairly expansive team of people, either directly working with CBEY or directly working with YSELP or some combination thereof, a number of faculty and students all integrated. But I encourage you, if you want to learn more, or if you want to get involved in the research, or if you want to join us with a symposium, or if you're interested in the advisory committee, I really encourage you to reach out. There's an enormous amount of activity going on and lots of opportunities to engage. So.
Great, thanks, Todd. And in another area where we have a lot of activity going on across campus, Sophie's going to talk about the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Yes. Hi, everybody. As you mentioned, my name is Sophie Janaski. I am the Environmental Innovation Fellow that sits jointly between the Yale Center for Business and the Environment, as well as a new entity on campus called the CBEY Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. So I think I just want to give a little bit of a background as to what some of the exciting things have been happening across campus over the past year, and some exciting things that are happening in the coming year regarding the new center that is on campus, which is something that, yeah, it's a very exciting time to be involved in entrepreneurship and innovation on Yale's campus. So in the fall of 2017, CBEY City was formed and sort of launched as the new sort of center for gravity for innovation and entrepreneurship resources and activities on campus. There's a number of different centers and programs that are happening all across campus that are sort of working in this area, and the idea was that city can be a place where all these centers and programs are coalescing their efforts and working together and sort of creating a more cohesive innovation and entrepreneurship community on campus. So we're really excited in the coming year to be partnering a lot with CBEY City to help further our various innovation and entrepreneurship activities, as well as a number of the different Yale Innovation Centers that are across campus that are being connected through this renewed focus on innovation and entrepreneurship, ranging from the Yale Landscape Lab to Innovate Health to the Center for Collaborative Arts and Media. We're looking forward to a lot of partnerships and working with all these centers on new programming.
Yeah, and just quickly, like for anybody who's been 12 years out, like the only thing that existed 12 years ago here was Dwight Hall.
Yeah.
And everything else here has grown up and is new. So it's really, when Sophie mentions there's incredible growth, you can see it on that map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, we're really excited to be working with a number of these new, relatively new organizations, some of which were new to me as I returned to campus. I graduated from undergrad in 2015 and then from FES in 2018, and it's been really astonishing to see the number of new centers and programs and efforts that have been popping up throughout my time here. So to dig in a little bit more about what specifically CBEY is working on in the entrepreneurship and innovation space, we've got a number of different avenues for programming, for mentorship, for outreach that we've got planned for the 2018-2019 year. The first of which is grants and prizes, which includes the Sabaka and Sabin grants that I think a number of you are likely already familiar with. Last year, we launched a climate change innovation seed grant program that happens very early on in the year to fund projects that are focused on addressing climate change or environmental and social impacts of climate change, and not necessarily projects that are for-profit ventures, but could really be anything, whether it's research-based or nonprofit or other types of projects on campus. So that's something that we're excited about, and obviously in the past for all of our grants and prizes, we've had wonderful success and wonderful support from alumni participating in those, serving as mentors and judges, and really helping make that program what it is. As well, we have a number of opportunities for research and skill building. Those include our workshops and independent studies. We're working in conjunction again with CBEY City and a number of other centers to offer workshops to build skills in sustainable innovation, as well as general entrepreneurial skills, from pitching to negotiation to fundraising, but also topics that are perhaps more targeted towards environmental and sustainability entrepreneurs, including sustainable product design, sustainable business model creation, and marketing, specifically for environmental ventures. In terms of independent studies, we again offer a number of opportunities for students to engage in research on topics related to environmental and social entrepreneurship. For example, we've got an exciting independent study that we're working on launching for the fall semester related to small business innovation research grants that are federally provided, and investigating how different federal agencies are determining what entrepreneurs are receiving that funding and whether there are operational changes that can be made to improve that methodology. And then lastly, we have two main areas of programmatic focus that we're excited to zero in on and really drive some resources towards. And those include the climate change innovation and tech and sustainability programs. So our climate change innovation program is focused on, it's a set of programming that focuses on helping students or inspiring students to solve and think about and research solutions to climate change and the social and environmental impacts of climate change. Some of the programmatic elements within that are, for example, a group called the Net Zero Action Project, and that is a group of students who meet in conjunction with a number of faculty members and outside advisors to work on projects with real-life clients, to investigate applications of the net zero principle. So for example, partnering with a company to investigate how they might reach a net zero waste goal. So that's sort of an example of the type of thing that happens in the climate change innovation programming. And then lastly, our tech and sustainability focus. We're hoping to launch a number of programming including boot camps and hackathons focused on how building technical skills with students and then applying them to real-life environmental problems. So those are sort of on a high level some of the programming that we've got coming up for the 2018 and 2019 school year. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the key role that a number of alumni and friends of Yale are playing and can play in this programming, whether it's mentorship and advising for students who have projects and ventures that they're looking to realize and make into a reality, or whether it's participating in a speaker series or leading a workshop and engaging with students on that level. There's, we're excited to invite a number of alums to campus to sort of participate in this, and I can definitely say from conversations with our people who are already going through our programming that mentorship and advising from alums and friends of Yale are a huge help and success in terms of their experience. So with that,
cool.
It's back to Stu.
Great. So, two areas where we've got a lot of established work in research and engagement across Yale. I'm going to talk about where we're building off of success in another area in clean energy finance and developing a new program which we hope can engage a whole new cohort of learners and participants and partners outside the university, both domestically and internationally. So for those of you who aren't aware, the largest elective last semester between the School of Management and the School of Forestry was Renewable Energy Project Finance, where you had 150 students from across campus taking this course taught by Daniel Gross, a Yale College SOM FES alum who has kind of developed an incredible array of professional experience that he's then applying to the classroom. This, is indicative of where a professional is drawing their resources and pulling that back into the classroom here. And we've also made a host of efforts to kind of take the insight and intellectual capital and translate what we're able to produce here out to a broader audience. So over the course of the past 5 years, we've developed a publication called the Clean Energy Finance Forum, which now on a bi-weekly basis goes out to somewhere in the range of, depending on what social media channels you track, newsletters, 10 to 12,000 people receive that. And these are all professionals. Vast majority are not academics. These are people working in the field who are looking for actionable insights and relevant information to do their jobs. We've grown that, and one of the things we noticed in looking at the data and talking to people in the field was folks were really hungry for a more state-based approach to looking at the development of clean energy across the U.S. And so one of the new components of the site that we're going to launch in the fall is a States of Clean Energy Innovation component of this, where we will take, and what we, shorthand for it is, we've looked across a lot of different resources, and there's an incredible amount of data and visualizations and maps that everyone has developed, but no one had taken the time to kind of do the kayak of clean energy and pull that together into a package where somebody could look at New York and see public opinion, market research, incentives, incubators and accelerators, relevant news articles, and data on that state. And so what we've done is then taken the approach of there are really 51 federal governments for clean energy in the United States, and how do we serve each one of those markets? So you will be able to go into the Clean Energy Finance Forum and then see state relevant information, including jobs, links, visualizations, and news, as well as a quick cut opinion pieces from relevant alumni and leaders at that state. So as you can see in the visualization here, we have Richard Kaufman highlighted for somebody who would do 3 questions on the state of clean energy innovation in New York. So where do we draw in alumni resources to kind of give us unique insight on the way state policies are developing? So this is an established program at the center, which we are building off of even further. The next stage of development that we're going to have, and where we will need a lot of, and it would be fantastic we need this for it to be successful, we will benefit from it tremendously here, is alumni engagement in developing and launching a new piece of curriculum here out of the university, where we're going to have one of the first certificates on financing and deploying clean energy. So in June of 2019, we will launch a new program out of Yale where we will take the curriculum I mentioned before, the resources that we've developed here, the teaching and engagement of other tenured faculty, practitioners, experts from across Yale, and condense that into a year-long program where students can stay at home, learn online for 2 to 4 hours a week, and get a condensed version of some of the material that a master's student might get here. Being able for people to stay in their jobs, kind of get more relevant and accessible information and forward-thinking information on how these markets are going to develop, and understanding how to finance and deploy these technologies at scale. So we've just hired a wonderful FES alum, Veronique Borgmeyer, who will be leading that program. And you can find her on the CBEY website. You can get in contact with me if you're interested in learning more about it. But we are going to be developing the curriculum over the course of the next year, looking for expert voices to participate online and record sessions for that, and then building a whole new cohort of people, hopefully pulled from organizations all across the U.S. who are in need of this new type of programming. So that's an emerging area that we've got working, where we will need a deep network of alums to help us. And then we've got another emerging area that Brad will talk about in where we're connecting across Yale and then connecting even more fully with external partners.
Thanks, Stuart. I too will get off the picture. So I think many of you know that there's more and more attention being focused on the health benefits of time in nature, whether that's in healing gardens in hospitals, or whether that's out for physical activity on trail systems, or whether that's creative play for kids and their cognitive development. And we've had our sort of fingers in that from a number of perspectives for a while, but there seems to be an opportunity bubbling up to do even more across the conservation finance work, where health providers are saying, maybe we should be putting money into new parks or trails, or new programming in parks and trails. The urban resilience work, where cities are thinking about green infrastructure as part of their resilience building as they think about managing water, reducing temperature, and improving health. And then also diversity and inclusion questions, because what your zip code is matters as much or more as your personal lifestyle in determining your health going forward. So this area is starting to let us connect across science and solutions in a whole bunch of different ways, some of it across Yale. We're starting to pull together a group of folks from SES, SOM, nursing, public health, and architecture who are engaged in different parts of this and interested in working together. The conservation community, the Land Trust Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, and others are doing more and more in this arena as they look to increase the relevance of land conservation and their work. Health funders and others are starting to say, where is money needed, or how might we put money to work? And we're in conversations with everybody from the sort of community level crowdsourcing funders to the largest funder of health programs in the United States. Not quite sure where this is all going to lead us. It could certainly go into convenings of various types, could go into research at the faculty level or the student level. It could go into connecting projects and work on the ground in New Haven into global networks like the 100 Resilient Cities program of the Rockefeller Foundation and others. And we'd love to get your thoughts, suggestions, questions about people we might connect with, alums we might connect with, or others. I will note that we've got a very busy time between November 1st and November 2nd with a variety of CBEY events. Todd's investing event, but on November 2nd, some of us will also be participating in a symposium with the Hickson Center for Urban Ecology on green infrastructure, science, operations, and funding. And several of the speakers will come from the health sector during that session. So, let's see.
Awesome, thanks, Brad. And you'll notice that I made the slide deck, so I did not put my picture up. That's part of the benefits of actually making the slide deck. So I'm going to talk to you about specific ways that you can engage with CBEY. After listening to all of this, you're sitting there like, hey, how can I get engaged with CBEY, and how can I get more deeply involved with the work that CBEY is doing? And luckily, I can help you out and share a few of the ways, just a smattering of the ways that you can actually get engaged with us. We think about the opportunities in 4 different ways: mentorship, sharing expertise, partnership, and financial contribution. So mentorship, starting with mentorship. As Sophie mentioned earlier, CBEY works really hard to support our students who are budding entrepreneurs and innovators. And one of the ways we do this is through funding. Students who apply for one of our grants or prizes have the opportunity to be paired with a mentor who can be a sounding board as they build and test their ideas. If you have this knowledge base and interest, we'd love to hear from you and place you in our mentor network. And behind there, you'll see Renewal Mill, who won the, I think it was the 2015 Saber Prize, who greatly benefited from being supported by a mentor throughout the process. Sharing expertise. This is a bit of a broader bucket. We have a lot of different ways that alumni can come back virtually or in person and share their expertise. You can participate in one of our webinars. We'd love to have you as a guest in one of our 3 webinars that focus on innovations and trends in renewable energy, ecosystem services, and internal carbon pricing. You can be a resource for one of our digital publications. We have a whole team of student writers who are writing original articles on clean energy finance and conservation finance, and we're constantly looking for experts to weigh in on these various topics. As you heard Stuart mention and Todd, we're building curriculum, and you can be a resource for us as we continue to build and launch those programs. We're also running 4 credit workshops, one in corporate water risk and a new series on blockchain and food and fashion. So we'd love to leverage your expertise as we continue to build out these initiatives. Speaker series. Every year we bring dozens of speakers to campus to speak in areas such as climate change innovation, entrepreneurship, sustainability leadership, and personal career journeys. The picture you'll see is two of our recent alum from Unilever, Lizzie and Rachel, who came back to participate in our Pathways, which is a whole series on sharing career stories, which was incredibly successful and very well received by our students. So, we'd love to have you back for any one of those. We love to bring back the alumni because their perspective is incredibly unique and highly relevant to our student community. So just invaluable to have you back here talking to our students. You could lead a workshop, as Sophie mentioned before, if you have a unique skill set and would like to share that with our community. We'd love to bring you to campus and help teach that and share that with others. You can be a visiting expert. This was something that we launched last year. It was very successful. Several alumni set time aside, mainly virtually. They set up these appointments virtually for one-on-one conversations with students who wanted to talk through their ideas or new ideas with alumni who have relevant and interesting experiences in this space.
Heather, before you leave that, just mention one thing. As Stuart mentioned earlier, the new specializations in the NEM degree program at FES, and there will be opportunities to engage with FES alums. And we're thinking this is going to be one of the areas that we're trying to figure out. CBEY started with joint degrees, but it's expanding its programs and out to others. FES students who don't have the MBA, also have needs and desires to connect in. Some of that they can do through CBEY, and some of that we'll do through special programming with the Center for Industrial Ecology and Green Chemistry and others. So lots and lots of ways for alums to come in, depending on what your interest and background and experience are.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. And so if any of these sound interesting to you, I'll show you how to get in touch with us at the end, but we'd love to have you back with our community. Partnership. So this represents a longer-term, more substantive engagement with CBEY and can look like our partnership with the Connecticut Green Bank, where through research and building of case studies and more, we're working together to drive investment into clean energy across the state of Connecticut. Or it can look like our partnerships with Patagonia and the Nature Conservancy, who have extended presence on campus and lead discussion groups or independent studies, as well as advise our students on topics within their areas of expertise. So I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to say, Sir Brad, about our partnerships, or feels good?
They're great. I mean, our operating principle is that so much of the interesting stuff here that we learn is from distributed professional networks of people who are tackling questions that actually need to be pulled in here. That the professionals are out there in an incredibly fast evolving field where we always need to catch up. And it is a relationship where we hope we can establish when we both learn from each other. So we view these partnerships as ones where we constantly learn from the people that we are engaging with.
And one of the great values I think we provide to our students is connecting them into the professional networks where they want to build their careers. So these sort of partnerships help us do that.
Definitely. And last, but certainly not least, is financial contribution. If there's anything you've heard about today that resonates as something that you'd like to specifically support financially, we'd love to have a conversation with you about how we can make that happen. I'd also like to flag that thanks to the Emmett Foundation, we have a very generous dollar-for-dollar match program over the course of the next 5 years that can help expand our work even further. So, please help us take advantage of this match opportunity and just continue to build and grow our programming. Also, if you would like to give a more immediate gift, I have made it incredibly easy for you to do so at the CBEY website. So just visit our website, cbey.yale.edu/support, and there's a button there where you can donate right now. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the actual opportunities, the specific matching opportunities, I circled it. There's more information there as well on the matching opportunity. So with that, for more information, visit us, email us. You certainly feel free to, if you have personal relationships with any of us here in the room, feel free to email directly, or certainly send an email, just shoot a quick email to cbey@yale.edu. We check that email box often every day, so we'd love to connect with you. And at this point, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to say, we want your questions. Anybody want to type in some? I have one question, so thank you, Urvashi, for typing a question. And thank you, Zoe Lloyd, for using the chat and letting us know of your interest in our product design workshop. So I will just read it directly. It says, "Hi, Todd and other panelists. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. Just wondering if you have any avenues for engagement for alumni at the intersection of healthcare and sustainability. So if so, I'd love to contribute in any way."
Yeah, it's one of the things that's really interesting, and Stuart should jump in on this as well. There's a couple of different angles. One, there's a new hire at SOM, Teresa Shaheen, who is a social entrepreneur in health. She comes from Harvard. She's arrived about a month ago. She and I sat down for the first time yesterday. She's very interested in the health and nature angles, and there's an executive MBA program in healthcare as well, and a long history of connections between SOM and the School of Public Health. We have a lot of interest of folks in the School of Nursing, which in many ways sort of reminds me of FES in terms of how people engage with the community during their time at the school. So I think we can start putting together a bunch of opportunities there. We haven't yet gotten to I haven't yet gotten to the point in the stuff I'm working on to say, okay, how do alums fit into this? But that will come, and we might as well start it now. Are you aware of any other sort of immediately?
Some immediately relevant thing, just underlining the connection with Teresa, that she is housed, she's the first Sheila Marcello lecturer of social entrepreneurship at the School of Management. And she's housed in the program on entrepreneurship there. And she's been given a good amount of agency and leeway in her first kind of, entry into Yale in the first year to figure out that program of research and teaching and engagement. So she's really looking for all these connections across campus. And I think for anybody who's an alum and would like to kind of see what it looks like at the very early stage of forming these connections, she's a wonderful person to reach out to and connect with. And the second is the School of Management. Todd does the EMBA track on sustainability. The healthcare track just announced 3 full scholarships for people to go into the healthcare track who come from minority backgrounds. And so they're really looking to pull in people who potentially in urban environments or underrepresented communities are closest to many of the issues that you see in healthcare that Brad mentioned, that kind of disparity in zip codes. And where are you getting those folks into the program and engaged, and where are you finding people who'd be really interested in challenging themselves over 2 years at Yale to be one of those leaders in the space. So I think there are new scholarships and programs that are there. There are new people to help in that regard, and there's a real alignment across Yale of schools and activities that people can get involved in. Do you have anything?
One last thing. Teresa and I are in very early conversations around a solutions course. Some of you are very recent. Remember that I did the first version of a business environment solutions. So Teresa and I have been talking about what that might look like as a business and environment and health solutions, kind of bringing her expertise in. Very, very early conversation, but it's a space that I think there's a lot of interest in obviously around the campus. So if you're interested in kind of, at this point, it'd be helping to shape that conversation, then I'd encourage you to reach out either to Brad or myself or Heather. I think we could all get you connected.
Well, any other questions from the audience that we can take? We have, 12 minutes to spare, or we could tap in.
Or we could shut it down.
Yeah. Maybe Heather could tap in.
I could, and I can juggle, so that would be fun. Great. Well, do you want to wrap it up or say thank you?
I guess one thing that I would say is, while we've done these before, and as we think about doing more or doing them differently going forward, any and all comments on this format, how the kind of information we're presenting, things like that, will be extremely useful. We've always been sort of customer driven at CBEY, and it would be great to get your thoughts and ideas.
We have another question that I will shout out. Thank you so much, Dwayne. Who would be best to connect with to explore investment opportunities and startups coming through our initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Sophie or I are good starting points to just get you connected inside the university. As Sophie mentioned, the CBEY Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale is the kind of umbrella organization or the center of gravity where a lot of these programs have come through. There's a summer incubator and accelerator program and ones that happen throughout the year where they are moving these businesses along through mentorship and financial support that you'll be able to see coming out. There's also a full week as well that we ran last year of Startup Yale, where you get to see there are 5 different prizes that are like the Saban Prize, $25,000 winner take all across campus, sponsored by individual schools or programs. And everybody comes together at the end of the year to pitch on those. And so this past year, we had a number of really interesting ones who are finalists and then people who were selected. So you get a chance to see kind of 20 or 20 some odd of the top ventures at Yale all pitching. And I think with this coming year, we'll do it within a 2-day period likely. So you can come for a day, spend a night, and see all those at one time.
That's usually in late April.
Yeah, that's usually this. Yeah, I mean, early mid-April this year is when we're going to schedule it. We'll get the dates out to everybody. So certainly a number of different ways to get engaged and get plugged in on that. And then internally, Yale works on supporting faculty research as well that would get spun out into ventures. And a great person to contact there is Jim Boyle, who works at the Office of Cooperative Research, who supports a lot of the kind of larger grants and efforts that would support later stage or the commercialization of faculty research.
We do have another question that came in, and I just wanted to answer. Somebody was asking what Teresa's last name was. It's Shaheen, C-H-A-H-I-N-E, Teresa Shaheen. And then we have another question from Pablo. Dear CBEY team, thank you for this webinar. Can you tell us a little bit more about internationalization efforts from the center, like, for example, GNAM, WBCSD, and more?
Pablo, and everybody should recognize Pablo actually did some of the earliest mapping of all of our work with these global networks for advanced management schools. This is 30 schools from around the globe, drawn primarily from the developing world rather than the developed world. Brad and Todd have developed and taught a course on natural capital, managing risks and opportunities in global resource systems through that, which has been the flagship online course for that program. And we did the first survey of all of those students where we highlighted their attitudes toward climate change and environmental sustainability prior to the Paris Agreement. And you can find that report online. Pablo, this year we're actually doing a new survey amongst all 30 of the schools across the Global Network for Advanced Management on the Sustainable Development Goals. So we'll actually have in the fall that survey distributed and then results on business students' attitudes and opinions and understanding level of the SDGs, which will then produce a report out of. A second component that I would mention is within the clean energy finance certificate that we're looking at, our goal is to develop a program that we can replicate and do it for emerging markets as well. So we would do a program that would be targeted domestically for that certificate program, and one that we hope we could launch that would hit where most of the growth and development and activity and infrastructure is going to be put in place, where there's a tremendous amount of dynamism and change in the world. So those are a couple of the areas.
So some of the other areas I might mention is that Daniel Groves, who teaches that class, is doing consulting for the World Bank and is going back and forth about what the internship opportunities look like around the work that he's doing with the bank. And that'll help set up that version of the course. Murali Chandrasekaran and I continue to do the Urban Resilience course in collaboration with the 100 Resilient Cities program. And this fall, we'll be having projects with chief resiliency officers in the Americas and in Asia. And we'll also be doing our first thematic project with them that'll be specifically around green and blue infrastructure, and what the issues are that their cities are facing, and what the research needs are, as well as what the solution sets might look like. So I think it's fair to say that we're continuing to do a lot. A lot of it's being done virtually. We do still have a lot of the global network weeks to which students go in a variety of different areas, including the EMBA students now in May or June. And we're still members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. The next meeting will be in Singapore in October, and Yale and US people are working with WBCSD folks on setting that up. I don't know at this point who from here might be going. Are you going?
No, but we are sending somebody. There's a couple of somebodies, I think. There's a couple other interactions. So we're finishing work with the World Business Council on kind of corporate engagement and materiality. We're in discussions with them around other opportunities, mostly in the kind of chief financial officer space. We also just finished a project through CBEY for global telecom operators to produce a framework for how they assess their own economic and social impacts. And there were telecom operators from around the world kind of participated in that, from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, everywhere. So there have been some more kind of focused research efforts, and mostly on the corporate side that we've been engaged with as well.
Okay.
That looks like it from our live question feed. So thank you to all who have submitted questions, everybody who participated. We look forward to hearing from you about ways that you want to engage with us. And again, reach us at cbeyal.edu, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks so much.
Yep. And we'll do another one of these in 6 months after you give us feedback on what we should improve about it and how we should do it better. And somebody just tried to get in before the deadline with another.
No, just thank you so much.
Oh, thank you too. Great.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yep. Take care, y'all.